Welcome back to supplementary elections. Well, there you've just seen that of the Sokoto State Collation Center. Well, talking about that they're going to go ahead. They need a little more time to do all of the finalities before they eventually announce a winner for that particular elections. Well, as you can see, well, so there you go. So well, she's still just trying to put all in place. But yes, the candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Aminu Tambawal, as you see there, is winner of the elections with 502,002 to that of APC's Aliyu, polling 511,660. So you see the difference there. Wow.
342.
Whew. This is the closest in this elections. But well, we've since been joined by Liberal Osashoma, a legal practitioner. Thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
Well, Mr. Lugbo in Abuja, who is of the Clean Foundation. We'll still have him there, but we'll come to you in a moment as well, taking a look at all of the proceedings. But let's quickly get some reactions concerning that of Sokoto State, 342. Who would have thought this this margin could have been in this? And it was very keenly contested.
Yes, it's a razor-thin difference, margin. And it shows that the two political parties, leading political parties in the state, are very competitive in this election. And if a return is made eventually, because that has not been made, and the incumbent governor wins the election, it will then mean that, just as it's happened elsewhere in our political history, his deputy who switched camp to go to another political party, after initially moving to the PDP, then moving back to the APC, is not able to unseat his principal, so to speak. In the Second Republic, in 1983, Chief Akin Omoboro, God rest his soul, tried that with Chief Michael Adekunle Ajasin in Ondo State. He didn't succeed. He moved to the MPN, and indeed he was declared the winner of the election. But there was pandemonium in Ondo State. He ran out of Ondo State to hibernate in Lagos, which was the political capital of Nigeria then, under heavy police escorts. And he was being asked, if indeed you won this election, why don't you go back to Ondo State and savor your victory? And all that. Eventually the court intervened, and Chief Michael Adekunle Ajasin, was returned as governor. In Lagos State, in 2007, can also be recalled that Mr. Femi Pedro,
yes, sir.
Also, he wasn't trying to unseat his principal. Rather, he was trying to prevent the nominee and the candidate of principal from becoming a governor. And of course, he didn't succeed. It can be very testy. A personal relationship, of course, will become a casualty in that kind of thing. And because we take political contest very, very personal in this part of the world, and the focus usually is not about, so because I've been saying this, and it's almost become a cliche. If the intention is to serve, you won't want to kill people to serve.
True.
And you don't want to get killed to serve, right? But it's something that propels politicians in this climate. It's not just that they are very fixated on serving the people. If it is self-actualization, my insistence is that you can self-actualize in other areas. There are examples that are there where people will then know that, look, I want to do something else. I want to serve the people in other areas. And that's very important.
But Liberals, I'm just wondering, I mean, looking at this and with that historical background, do you ever think that politicians will do something about getting more powers to their deputies? Because if deputies keep doing this, there's no way out for them.
You find out that oftentimes deputies also are governors in waiting. You know, so in some cases, it's a realignment of blocks. And okay, you go for, this is my nominee for the post of deputy, and then you join forces. If you remember, Tambuwa, Sokoto had been in the history, in the electoral, you know, storm for a long time. Remember from Wamako's election petition also at the Court of Appeal, that also was very novel. If you remember, it was the election, the Sokoto election petition that actually started the crisis between Justice Ayo Salami, the quarrel between Justice Ayo Salami and Justice Kassina Alu. Because at that time, you remember, the Sokoto election matter was at the Court of Appeal, and then the Supreme Court arrested that judgment. Wamako then was governor. And then thereafter, Justice Ayo Salami was elevated to Supreme Court, and he declined that elevation. That to him, it was more of a demotion. And we all know that indeed it was a demotion, because already being the chief judge of the Court of Appeal, you were on equal ranking with the Supreme Court justice. And so if you are now, and then you head a section of the court, and so if you are elevated, so you go queue up behind,
to become CJN.
Others at the, you know, so that's on one side. And then also, if you remember at that time also, the deputy at that time was supposed to be the flag bearer of the party. Then Wamako was given the ticket, Tambuwa was given the ticket. He left PDP for APC. And now
his deputy was Shehu Shagari's son.
Yes, Shagari. Yeah. So he was handed the ticket. I think he was supposed to be his deputy at that time also, and he declined. And so now you have this, and what actually played out then was that, like I said, it was a synergy between forces. And so that was why it was easy for this deputy also to say, look, you know what, my camp wants to go, you know, the whole hog, because that was the camp that didn't leave, you know, with the governor, because he belongs to a different power block. And so what I think, like, to answer your question, what will be playing out now often is that even if there are alignment, governors would want, you know, if you're nominating a deputy, they want a weaker deputy.
Because don't forget Kanu.
And not just Kanu.
Too.
If you remember, in Imo, Madumere also wanted to be, you know, the flag bearer of the party before he was that kangaroo impeachment that the court eventually nullified. It was what led to, you know,
before he was accused of racing pigs in government house.
Enugu, right?
And he accused,
you know, that was Enugu
of having pens and then racing chickens.
You know, so with all of this, and like GT had said, where we take political contest personally, we see it as, you know, a do or die thing. And you will see, also
find... That's Imo State.
Enugu was...
Enugu was pigs.
Was it pigs or...
Yeah, that was Sullivan Chime's tenure.
Yeah, raising poultry.
Yes, poultry, that he had a poultry in government house. Madumere was Imo. And so, what I think now, that's why you also find out that a lot of governors don't delegate powers to their deputy. Even Amosun had the same issue when he in his first tenure. Remember, I think the deputy eventually resigned. But the deputy then was from Oshoba's camp. He was nominated from that camp when, you know, they decided to join forces.
But the presidency doesn't have any problems, do they?
You can never say, because we all know what happened. It was an alignment of political forces also. You had the ACN bloc, you had the CPC bloc, you had the NPDP bloc, you had a faction of the ABGA also. You know, all of these people, in spite of the seemingly togetherness that we've seen, and they still maintain individual blocks. So if the ACN angle, the ACN block, if there's crisis any day, definitely you might see some of this.
I'm speaking about crisis.
But I know it won't get.
Haven't seen this margin. This is a point that Mr. Lugo raised earlier about in order to see how we could put an end or reduce the barest minimum, all of this brigandage that we see, contestations going awry, election petition commission, I beg your pardon, election offenses
commission.
So how relevant is that going to be? Is that going to work as a deterrent, or do we continue with the system we have?
You know, I've had a lot of arguments about the need, the necessity to have that commission. And indeed, a lot of people have argued that it emanated from the waste panel report. My take is that you just can't be creating bodies and bureaucracy at the drop of the hat. When you have plenitude of laws and provisions in extant legislations that cater to the mischief we're trying to cure. If you look at the Electoral Act, and I'm referencing Section 142, Section 142, Section 2, which empowers INEC to be represented by the Attorney General of the state and the Attorney General of the Federation, and by its legal nominees or representatives, by giving consent to them to represent them, even in civil proceedings. If you read that provision, along with provision of Section 149 and 150 of the Electoral Act, that empowers INEC to prosecute all electoral offenses, you will see that INEC not only has the duty to prosecute electoral offenses, it also has the duty or the right and power to then farm out such briefs, nominate the Attorney General of the Federation, Attorney General of the state, to prosecute on his behalf. What we've not seen is INEC exercising these powers. What we've not seen is INEC, even in anticipation of election, budgeting for prosecution of electoral offenders. What we've seen, however, is INEC budgeting for legal representation in civil proceedings, in election petitions. So, meaning that even at the outset, INEC has not made provision for the enforcement of those powers, enormous powers given INEC. So, it is not the creation of a new body now to deal squarely with electoral offenders that will do the magic. I'm telling you, there was a time we had a failed bank tribunal in this country, specifically established to deal with the issue of failed banks. But when the military was going in 1999, being a military decree to pave way for democracy, the jurisdiction exercised by the failed bank now reverted to the Federal High Court, the regular court. And that failed bank tribunal was abolished. Since that time, banks have been failing. So, had it been the excuse since then that, oh, we cannot prosecute those who make the banks fail, and we know their names. You know, all the cases that have gone to the Supreme Court and come back, we mentioned those names because there is no failed bank tribunal. I'm saying that, you know, when we have our backs to the wall, we start thinking that, oh, it is because we don't have a new body. It is because, look, sir, we can't just be creative because we have problems all over. We can just say now that we need a special tribunal to try kidnappers. Yes. We need a special tribunal to try ritualists. You can't be doing all those. That would mean that indeed you are atomizing crime institutions, you know, in the judiciary to deal with all sorts of. That's not my own notion of how we should run. Let's get Mr. Lugbo to respond. He raised that point earlier. Mr. Lugbo, I mean, what do you think now? Should we still proceed with it, or with some of these examples, we can have a rethink of it? All right, we'll try and sort that out. Mr. Lugbo, just hang on. We'll come back to you to make your point in just a moment. So we need to just quickly correct so we can get some sound.
Because
what you're saying.
Yeah, what I was going to argue, I mean, what the question I was going to, doesn't this then, since INEC has these powers but has not begun to exercise it, doesn't it then mean that INEC is overburdened? Just a teaser for you. Before you can begin to say that certain powers that are donated to you by statutes have failed or are not availing, implement them first. No, isn't it a question of
coming to the issue of overburden now? INEC, the point GT is making, and which I completely subscribe to, is the fact that every election year, starting from pre-election matters, INEC, by virtue of Section 150 of the Electoral Act, appoints, nominate, and pay solicitors, lawyers to defend matters for and on behalf of INEC in courts, Federal High Courts, Court of Appeal, Supreme Courts in some cases, pre-election matters, and then also election petition matters. And so if you feel that politicians also are circumventing the process and breaching the provisions of the Electoral Act, and you have powers under that same act to prosecute offenders, even if not all, you don't need a special commission to now begin to carry out those powers that you have been donated to. Why not also, from the same pool, appoint lawyers, just like EFCC, firm out briefs to private prosecutors to prosecute cases for them? Why not also firm out some of these briefs to lawyers to prosecute electoral offenders?
Okay.
It is when you start prosecuting, you now say, oh, the burden is too much, and we can't go forward. But not that you have not even done at all. You say,
we should be able to hear you now.
If the will to prosecute is not there, it is not the creation of a special commission that will do the magic.
Go ahead, Mr. Odugbo, please.
Yeah, I want to commend my senior colleague for the argument he has made. But the reality is that INEC, as currently constituted, is not even using all the powers they have. I mean, let us look at the way the 2019 election was conducted. INEC had logistic problems, serious logistic problems, which also means that we really need to look closely again and ask ourselves, do we need to unbundle INEC? Because there was failure of activities in INEC itself. INEC's problems were both internal and external. There was a clear sabotage on INEC to do her job. We must agree with that. Now, if we now say that INEC that is already overburdened and also is suffering from system failure, to go ahead with the issue of prosecution, I think we are shooting ourselves in the foot. Because even INEC has also considered that there might be the possibility of third parties taking over some of the activities. And for us to have an effective INEC, I think the issue of prosecution has to be given to an independent body, because the reality is this: election is critical to democracy. You cannot be running a Nigerian election as if we're in a theater of war. And there is a problem of legitimacy. Both the process and the outcome has to be in sync. There is no sync between the process and the outcome. And that is why I believe that those who are aggrieved should go to court. Because a situation where there are different contending parties and people are now applying violence in order to win an election, that goes against the dictates of democracy. That goes against what we signed up in the 1999 Constitution and the Electoral Act that is governing election procedures. So if what we have is not good enough to get us to where we are going, then we need to change the process. I must comment, and I also agree and concede, that it will be multiplicity of institutions. But for the sake of our democracy, there is need to rein in on political thugs, rein in on politicians who want to scuttle this democracy. Let us also remember, most of the political thugs we are seeing in our country today, there is a high level of consumption of hard drugs in Nigeria. The report we did on election security management clearly showed that most of the states where these political thugs are having a field day, most of them are acting under the influence of hard drugs. We already have law that deals with those issues. Of course, we know that the federal government has recently banned some of this tramadol and the rest of it, but it has not solved the problem. We know that some of those places have also been raided by police and other security agencies that deal on these issues, but that has not resolved the problem. So we need to take the bull by the horn. We need to reform our electoral system. We need to look at INEC again to ask ourselves, are they doing the job we have given to them? If you recall exactly, the former chairman of the National Human Rights Commission in 2015 had published the names of individuals who, to an extent or the other, may have been complicit in the crimes that we have committed. Till date, nothing happened. So if we relax and sit back and say, it's the responsibility of INEC, the electoral assets they have to do it, fine and good, nothing has been done. Even INEC itself postponed the election 4 hours to opening of polls. And I must tell you that while we are having all these problems as we go along, is the problem of the logistics that INEC had when elections were supposed to open. So even as we go through these issues, I think it's important that we take a step back and ask ourselves, the INEC as of today, should it be unbundled? Then the issue of individuals who constitute themselves as authorities now to deal with Nigerians who just go to vote, do we just allow them to have a free reign and then also be practicing the democracy while people are not even sure whether if they go to vote, they will come back with their limbs and lives intact? It is an important issue that we need to deal with because election is a fulcrum of democracy. And we cannot get it right if we allow violence to become the norm.
This is understandable, Mr. Lugbo, and it's really appreciated. But I think we need to draw the lines, I don't know, gentlemen, among us here, between the powers of INEC and the functions of INEC. How does this differ?
Quickly, if we say we need to donate these powers to a special commission, INEC already has the powers. INEC, even the powers to defend matters.
Let me quote the particular section that Mr. Ogoye mentioned, section 142 of the Electoral Act.
And then section
144, subsection 2, okay, and section 149.
144 subsection 2 says the Attorney General of the state concerned, acting in person or through any of his legal officers, or the Attorney General of the Federation acting, in person or through any of his legal officers, may represent the commission and the officers referred to, may represent the commission and the officers referred to in subsection 1 of this section with the written consent or authority of the commission. My particular reference is to the fact that 142 says, without prejudice to the provisions of section 294 sub 1 of the Constitution of Nigeria, an election petition and appeal arising therefrom under this act shall be given accelerated hearing.
Well, no, my apologies, guys. We have to respond to this one. We'll come back from the break.
Okay.
Unfortunately, so don't go away.